I trusted my roommate like family, until one small missing thing made me realize nothing in my room was actually safe. My roommate and I weren't just people sharing a space. At least that's what I believed. We had built something that felt closer to family than convenience. We cooked together, watched random shows late into the night, shared small details about our days that didn't really matter to anyone else. It felt comfortable, safe, and most importantly, predictable. There was a routine to everything. A sense that nothing in that space could surprise me, because trust removes that constant need to question things. And with them, I never felt like I had to. They had access to my space, my things, my routines, and I never thought twice about it. Why would I? There had never been a reason to. The change didn't come all at once. It started small, quiet enough to ignore. A shirt I couldn't find, a book that wasn't where I remembered leaving it. Nothing valuable, nothing important, just small things that made me pause for a second before brushing it off. I told myself I was misplacing things, that I was being careless, because that explanation felt easier than suspecting someone I trusted. Days passed and the pattern continued. Something small would go missing, then show up later in a slightly different place. Not completely gone, just moved, like someone had touched it, used it, then tried to put it back without being noticed. I noticed it more than once, but every time I did, I convinced myself it didn't mean anything. People forget where they leave things. Memory plays tricks. That's what I told myself. And for a while, that belief held everything together, until one day something didn't come back. It was something small, not expensive, not something anyone else would even think to take, but I knew exactly where I had left it, and this time it wasn't there. I checked once, then again, then slowly went through everything in my room, drawers, shelves, bags, every place it could possibly be, but it wasn't, and that's when the feeling changed. It wasn't confusion anymore, it was awareness, because suddenly all the small moments from before didn't feel random. They felt connected, like pieces of something I hadn't been willing to see. I sat there for a while, trying to convince myself there was still another explanation, that I had missed something, forgotten something, but deep down I already knew. The next few days felt different, not because anything obvious changed, but because I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. I noticed when they went into my room, even casually. I noticed how comfortable they were around my things, how natural it seemed, like it wasn't something new, like it was something they had been doing long enough that it didn't feel wrong anymore. And that's what made it worse, because this wasn't one moment, it was a pattern, something that had been happening while I trusted them without question. Then came the moment that confirmed everything. I walked in unexpectedly one afternoon, earlier than usual, and there they were, in my room, holding something that belonged to me, not looking guilty, not surprised, just caught in a moment they hadn't expected to be seen. We looked at each other for a second that felt longer than it should have, and in that silence I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need excuses, because the truth was already clear. This wasn't about one missing thing. It was about everything I had ignored before that moment, the trust I had given without limits, and the way it had been used without hesitation. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, realizing something that changed how I saw everything around me. It wasn't just about what was missing. It was about what was no longer there. The sense of safety, the feeling of trust, the belief that my space was mine. And once that's gone, nothing ever feels the same again.